Well, Lora Ries joins me now, who's a senior research fellow for Homeland Security at the Heritage Foundation. Laura, welcome to the program. And is my idea of simply enforcing the law and prosecuting criminals, is that too simplistic for solving this problem?
Thanks, Lars, for having me on. And no, it is not too simplistic. Other cities that have had riots break out this summer have been able to get things under control. But Portland, due to the local and state leaders there, do not have the political will to stop this. And so it's been going on for over 4 months now.
And there's one leader in particular who's just newly elected. He's only been in office literally for a couple of months, from 1st of August now to now, so just over 2 months. And his name is Mike Ries. He is the local district attorney. And district attorneys take an oath that they're going to do their jobs. He's presented with cases, and he's been presented with literally hundreds of cases. And in 80% of the cases, he simply said he's not going to prosecute, and he uses the excuse in the interest of justice, which you can, I mean, it's such an amorphous phrase. It could mean almost anything. In this case, I think it means effectively that DA Mike Schmidt shares the political views of a lot of the folks in Antifa and BLM, and therefore thinks that their violent actions are justified.
It certainly appears that way. So the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office just posted, starting a week ago, a dashboard that anyone can go take a look at, and it talks about the protest cases. It shows the hundreds of cases that have been referred to Mike Schmidt's office, and they just updated it this week. So out of 978 cases that were referred, he has rejected nearly 70% of those cases, and of those that he rejected, over 81% he rejected, as you said, in the interest of justice, quote unquote. And, particularly in this week where we see the dictionary changing the meaning of words overnight.
You mean preference? What was it, preference that they changed in Webster's?
That's right. And yeah, exactly. For any Seinfeld fans out there, this is bizarro world. It is completely backwards.
Well, it is, and I guess when you only are going to offer the explanation of in the interest of justice without anything else, and believe me, we've tried to get an interview with this Mike Schmidt character, but he's done interviews with Antifa-friendly media. I mean, some of them are actually Antifa members, and he refers to Antifa as his friends. For lawyers looking at this, usually you look for a remedy in the law. And is the only remedy just to wait until the next election and elect somebody else 4 years from now? Actually, in his case, more than 4 years from now, since he's serving out the rest of a DA term, and then he gets 4 years beyond that. Is that the only remedy for voters and citizens?
Well, I don't know the recall law in Oregon, but folks might want to look into that. But yes, elections have consequences, and this is something these George Soros-funded district attorneys sprinkled around the country, it unfortunately is paying off for them in that many district attorneys are refusing to prosecute cases because they're down with the cause. And so they just release them back onto the street. And in the case of these rioters, they're right back rioting the next night. This dashboard even indicates that several of these are repeat cases, but they won't tell us how many of them are repeat cases. Thank goodness for folks like Andy No, who uses his
great
Twitter
journalist
account to post the mugshots, and you can see who we're dealing with here and how many times they've been arrested and then immediately released back onto the street.
Laura, let me ask you something. Do you think maybe it would work? I mean, short of the recall, I'd love to see a recall of this guy and have him replaced with somebody else. But I'm not sure he'd necessarily be replaced with somebody better. But that idea of the mugshots that Andy No did, and, he's been on the show for years, literally long before he came to national prominence. There have been people complaining, saying, well, now you're exposing us because once it's on the internet, it's there forever. And I wish some of these rioters, I refuse to call them protesters, would realize the implications. It may seem really cool and woke to do this kind of stuff now, but how are you going to explain this to a future potential employer when they say, so we're going to hire you for this very responsible position? What in the world were you doing throwing bricks at the head of cops back then?
Well, exactly. These are public records. So if they don't know that, then this is a wake-up call to them. And in some of these cases, they are currently employed. They're IT workers. They're teachers. And you really have to ask yourself, what on earth is going on? Do their current employers know? But to say they're being exposed really shifts the burden of responsibility. They are responsible. If they don't want to be arrested, then don't go riot.
And you're bringing up an interesting point. These days, a tweet can get you fired from a job. But apparently, engaging in violent criminal activity, oftentimes aimed at hurting cops, doesn't get you fired. You would think that that would be something that would at least cause your boss to call you into his or her office and say, explain this, or you're on your way out the door.
One would think. It will be very interesting to see once we can get past some of these COVID shutdowns, what happens here. When these people have to go back to school or have to go back to work, does this dissolve? I mean, it's clear that they're organized and they're being funded, but when they have to go to their day jobs, so to speak, what's going to happen?
Well, and I kind of hope that some of the employers imagine this. If you've attacked a cop and then you skated on the charges because of politics and he or she brings you back on the job, are you bringing back somebody that you as an employer know is a dangerous person, somebody willing to attack a cop? And if you do that, what kind of legal liability could you actually incur by ignoring that risk? That's Lora Ries, who studies Homeland Security as a research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Lora, thank you very much for the time.